Now men, this war has been dragging on too long. We need to find a way to win this war. Yes. Yes. I agree. Now I've been studying the arts of the Japanese, along with our history with the Japanese, and I found the solution. You see, this bomb was dropped on Nagasaki, the Mark III. This is a Mark IV, and we will use it on this land. Oh, yeah. So this is how we win the war, gentlemen. What was that? Alright men, it's time to end this war once and for all. A ceasefire? Yes sir, both sides have agreed to cease fire. Alright, well that's the agreement, and you know, what? Oh, what is that? Oh, that's nothing. You know, alright. Well, you know, maybe later if we want to introduce some new weapons, maybe. No. You know, no. Okay. No. All right. Okay. All right. Well, calm down there. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Bye now. What the heck? And this is how the North Korean nuclear program all started. After its initial deployment, American nuclear weapons did not leave Korea until 1991. And at the height of it all, during 1970, there were almost 1,000 nuclear warheads in Korea. To give you some perspective, even as of now, North Korea is estimated to have less than 100. But before we get to the present, I want to work on a timeline, a small one that starts in 1958, that shows how North Korea started developing this behavior and persona that we know of today. Because right now, when we think about North Korea, we think of, you know, some titles as rogue state, international criminal, you know, stuff like doesn't listen to, you know, international laws and stuff like that. But what would make North Korea be like that? North Korea is less than 100 years old, and when you're making a new country, no one wants to be a country that, you know, the entire world hates. Now, until the actual installment of the Honest John nuclear missiles and the M65 nuclear cannons in 1958, saying that kind of stuff is sometimes hard because there's a lot of numbers. And, you know, I mean, I have my notes here, you know, but I have to, you know, like look at the lens of the camera as I'm saying it, so I'm not like, you know, reading it off a script or something, but I am reading off a script. So anyways, until the actual installment of 1958, it took 2 years of planning and approval by President Eisenhower and the UN Security Council to install the nuclear weapons on South Korea. In the Korean Armistice Agreement, which was signed by North Korea on its own behalf and America on behalf of South Korea, which is also interesting, but we'll explore that in a different video. Section D of paragraph 13 states that no new weapons or any kind of armor or, you know, planes, this weaponry can be introduced to North or South Korea. Which means that after just 3 years of signing it, the US military decided to break the armistice. And when General Litzenberg, as a representative of the US military, addressed this issue to the public, he said that the US military no longer felt bound to Section D of paragraph 13 of the Korean Armistice Agreement. And because why not, right? Because it is the UN Security Council that is supposed to be enforcing this armistice, the same UN Security Council that has been slapping on sanctions on North Korean citizens for decades. And so this is when North Korea starts distancing itself from the UN because of the great hypocrisy, right? I mean, now you see the UN Security Council calling North Korea like international criminal and putting sanctions on this, sanctions on that. But before, the same council approved America to break the same armistice that they signed 3 years ago. 1985. So at this point, North Korea, with the help of the Soviet Union, was kickstarted to make its own nuclear power. And the US and the UN strategy to stop North Korea in its tracks was having North Korea sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Now, the NPT's mission is in the name. It's stopping the proliferation or the increasing amount of nuclear weapons on Earth. Isn't that itself already ironic? The fact that the country that has the most nuclear weapons on Earth is trying to enforce other countries to not have nuclear weapons. But as a show of good faith, North Korea does sign the NPT and even allows the International Atomic Energy Agency to come inside the country and inspect it. The IAEA was in North Korea to make sure that North Korea is holding up its own end of the deal. The IAEA confirms that North Korea did stop the production of plutonium as said in the agreement, but did not stop the construction of research buildings or manufacturing buildings for nuclear energy. And on the other side of the coin, America promised to do its part in normalizing relations and also removing nuclear weapons, which both never happened. The US military did not stop its massive war games along the 30th parallel and also did not remove the nuclear weapons, which you might say is a huge condition of the agreement, right? So the NPT eventually becomes obsolete, with North Korea meeting some of the conditions and America meeting none of the conditions. And so North Korea ends up continuing its nuclear research while America keeps its nuclear and military presence in South Korea. Now it's 1994. North Korea and the US signed this thing called the Agreed Framework, in which both sides do its part to ease tensions and to do things diplomatically. The conditions for the North was that they have to stop the construction of nuclear sites, which the IAEA came to North Korea again and confirmed. And the conditions for the US was that the US had to normalize relations, meaning stop the war games, and provide heavy oil and food aid. The heavy oil or food aid either never arrived or were extremely delayed. And for the war games, of course, continued. But in 1994, Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea, died, and Kim Jong-il, his son, took over and said, you know what, we can't trust Americans anymore, we're gonna do things our way. And so from then on, no major agreements happened between America and North Korea to ease tensions. And that is the end of this timeline. The reason why I showed this timeline was to hopefully show that initially North Korea did want and agree to work with the UN and America. But as time went and as agreements failed, North Korea lost trust and faith in the UN and America to uphold their parts of the agreement. And eventually, now, the attitude you see today is, screw it, we don't care what you say, we're gonna do our own thing. Okay, so that was a lot of material, and you probably think I'm done at this point, but you might see on the timeline, I am not done yet. But if you somehow made it this far, which I'm sure most, dropped out after the skit or something, if you made it this far, very good, thank you. And I really ask you to continue watching and to finish this video, because I think what I'm about to say for this last segment is probably the most important. Now, the Korean armistice did do its part in stopping all-out war, but really what it is in Star Wars when Han Solo and Luke just rescued Leia and they were in that trash compactor and they get that little bar and they try to stop the walls coming in. Yeah, that's what the armistice is right now. Since America brought in nuclear weapons, the introduction of new weapons just went all out. America did it, North Korea did it. The armistice really doesn't matter anymore. What I'm trying to say is that the armistice agreement is not doing a very good job of maintaining the peace, because both sides have crossed the conditions so many times. And as stated before, the one major thing America did to keep pissing off North Korea is the war games that happened along the 30th parallel, in which they actually used nuclear bombers to practice nuclear bombing runs. As I said in one of my last videos, almost 30% of North Korea's population was wiped out by the Korean War, mainly by American bombing. And now we even know that America was willing to use nuclear weapons during the Korean War. And so if 30% was wiped out by conventional warfare, imagine how much of North Koreans and South Koreans will die if it turns into nuclear warfare. And so if you place yourself in North Korea's shoes, and you see the biggest war machine that is America at your doorstep every year practicing invasion drills over and over again, the most biggest in the world, would you not want to protect yourself? So then wouldn't you agree that whether you're North Korea's government or citizens, you're not only going to want, but you're going to need a deterrence, a nuclear deterrence against a nuclear America. And this very deterrence has been, and it always will be, North Korea's #1 goal for the security of its own people. And now Kim Jong-un, the third generation of North Korean rulers, has finally achieved the dream of his father and his grandfather in being able to deter against America. Throughout the last decades, US always had the upper hand on the Korean peninsula because of their nuclear power. But with North Korea's latest launch of Hwasong-15, North Korea has proved to the world that they can potentially hit Washington with a nuclear warhead. And while this may look like an aggressive, ruthless act of war, it's actually leading, and it led, to a totally different, peaceful, diplomatic solution. North Korea's reason kind of seems like BS, right? I mean, you're developing a weapon that can hit anywhere on the US mainland, but you're saying you're doing this all for diplomacy? As counterintuitive it may look, that is exactly what is happening right now. In Kim Jong-un's New Year's speech, which is kind of like the State of the Union that US presidents do, offered an olive branch to South Korea and say, hey, let's talk this out. The theme of this message has always been perpetual in the past, which has been, us two Koreas, South and North, have to hash this out amongst ourselves without US or Chinese or Russian intervention. Because remember, when the Chinese intervened in the Korean War, it was because of the US intervened in the Korean War. After the Korean War, the Chinese left North Korea. Did US leave South Korea? No, there's almost 25,000 troops still stationed in South Korea. So what North Korea virtually achieved is a guns pointed straight at Washington's head, saying, if you start a war with me, I will shoot you as well. Now that begs the question, will North Korea start war with America, not the other way around? Well, no, because North Korea has zero benefits from starting a war with the biggest military power in the world. So the North and the South have agreed to meet on January 9th and talk about things like the Olympics or, whatever else they might talk about. Now, is this a major step that's a game changer? No, but it is a small step towards a peace treaty, which is what we need right now. And speaking of diplomacy, the US did something that they said they would almost never do, which is postpone war games. And South Korea welcomed North Korean athletes to the Pyeongchang Olympics happening next month as a show of good faith. So like I said before, it seems counterintuitive, right? North Korea goes ham and makes this big-ass nuclear weapon that you would think would upset and create war, right? But it does exactly the opposite. It creates a chance for talks, not because we're both pointing a gun at each other. If one shoots, the other won't shoot as well, which is what neither sides want. The world doesn't want. So hopefully, South and North can achieve good talks and, hopefully some kind of agreements on the talk on the 9th, and all sides involved can take a break from this madness during the Olympics in the spirit of the games. And that is it for today, guys. Honestly, if you made it this far, you're a freaking champ, because I just preached and it was like a long, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It was long. And so this is the part 3 and the final piece of my series, Understanding North Korea. And I believe that this topic is the most important and the most relevant, not only to Koreans or Americans, but the entire world. This is by far the video that I've put in the most research and time into, in hopes that it will reach out and resonate, something somewhere. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. If you really did make it this far, really good job, and thank you. Next video will be on South Korea, so please stay interested and tuned for that one. And I'll see you guys next time. Good luck with your new semesters. Bye bye.